On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast, Alex Zhavoronkov. Welcome to the podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here. And we're at Bio 2023. How are you liking the conference so far?
Well, first of all, great to be here with you. Love the conference. It's full of energy. I would say the choice of venue is probably one of the best Bio has ever decided to, locate at, because Boston Seaport, nothing beats Boston Seaport. It's an amazing conference center, and I must say that even though it feels like biotech is in the biotech winter, so a lot of companies are not doing well financially.
Right.
It's a hugely vibrant community, and you can see that people from all over the world came here and are actively partnering, actively communicating, are actively collaborating, exchanging ideas, and the knowledge sharing in this conference is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the lines alone and just the people and the number of booths and everything else. I mean, it's just such a big conference as well. I mean, this is probably I had said this on previous episodes, this is probably the biggest conference that I've seen since COVID.
Not the biggest one I've seen, but I must say it's one of the biggest ones. And also, I would say if you look at the average annual pay per delegate, it's probably one of the richest conferences in the world.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good way to characterize it as well. Yeah.
So billions, hundreds of billions of dollars here in one room.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about, what it is that you do and who your company is and things like that. Yeah.
Sure. So Insilico is an AI-powered drug discovery company. We're a clinical stage biotech. We've managed to progress 3 assets that are internally discovered, internally derived from the platform into human clinical trials. So one has completed phase 1, now going phase 2, and 2 are in phase 1. We have discovered over 30 other programs that are in different stages. And last year, we nominated 9 preclinical candidates in small molecule drug discovery. So usually big pharma nominates, 4 or 5. So we did extremely well in terms of the number of preclinical candidates developed. And we do it using a platform called Pharma AI. It incorporates 3 engines. One is a biology engine. So we call it Biology 42 now. It incorporates Pandaomics and a few other tools for target discovery. So we enable scientists to discover targets at completely new level. So with over 60 target discovery philosophies, 22 AI engines that incorporate biological data, text data, and many other data types to find the optimal balance between novelty confidence and commercial tractability for protein targets. Then we have a system that generates novel molecules with the desired properties. Probably have heard about generative AI. Nowadays, it's almost like a swear word. But we were generative since 2016, when my first paper was published in generative chemistry. And we've developed a tool that utilizes 42 generative engines that allow you to design small molecules with the desired properties. So instead of looking for a needle in a haystack, you generate perfect needles. And we have a system that predicts clinical trials outcomes. So we look at phase 2 to phase 3 transitions for a variety of small molecule drugs that are first-in-class, single agent, targeted, and novel. So it has to be a novel molecule. And we combine those 3 systems together to very rapidly identify the shortest path from the discovery to the patient. That allows us to very rapidly progress our own pipeline also to effectively collaborate with the others.
So in terms of the decisioning for these tools, I mean, how long does it, whenever it's making the decisions to tell you, what is the best candidate, or, even in terms of deciding outcomes, how long does it normally take to process? Because sometimes, I mean, whenever I see the compute that has to go into things, sometimes it
Yeah,
takes a lot of time to think through things, and I haven't
yeah.
seen a lot of these tools
Very
for
good
AI yet.
question. So nowadays, a lot of tools are very snappy. So you can get the response very quickly, especially from a system called Pandaomics, and especially in disease areas where we have a lot of pre-computed answers. However, if you are to get a novel answer from, let's say, Pandaomics, sometimes you need to wait for half an hour or more, and you'll need to process very large data sets. In the case of chemistry, sometimes you need to wait for a week.
Oh yeah, sure.
So we usually configure it to run for 72 hours, even for, I would say, simpler targets and where we already have pre-trained generative engines that are generating molecules in response to either protein target or a small molecule that we're trying to optimize. But there we actually don't need snappiness because you are going to see very, very long time for validation cycle.
Sure.
And you are going to go all the way into human clinical trials with those molecules, but they should be damn good. So
Right.
when you are pre-training those models and when you are warming them up, even over 72 hours or a week, so that they learn the objective function and start generating good molecules, it's actually a small, tiny fraction of the time that's going to be spent on a preclinical program. So we don't care about that time. We care about the probability of success.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Very important to emphasize for everybody, right? That, in this case, it's not like ChatGPT spitting out an answer in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just something that's a lot more critical that's going to
In
go
some cases,
eventually human.
you want snappiness, right? So
Yes.
when you're
Yeah.
asking it, okay, well, what does this target do, and why do you think it should be prioritized? It's a good idea to have snappy responses. But for small molecule chemistry, don't care about how long it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of kind of thinking about the future and the impact that AI will have on drug discovery, I mean, whenever I look at phase 3 clinical trials and the level of failures that we see, I mean, is the expectation that we're actually going to see anytime soon those failures come down?
Well, I really hope that with AI-powered drug discovery, we are going to see substantial increases in probabilities of success, at least from what I expect to see from our pipeline. We do have very high expectations just because we have back-tested the system for phase 2 to phase 3 transition
Sure.
prediction. And there, the accuracy of prediction is pretty high for other people's programs. It should be pretty high for us. Unfortunately, AI-powered drug discovery is a reasonably new field. And you can only accelerate that much in early stages.
Right.
So imagine that you can cut down 2 years out of early stage R&D just by, making the drug faster, better, synthesizing less. You still need to perform a large number of preclinical experiments to demonstrate to yourself and also to the others, to the investors, to the FDA, that your compound is safe and effective. Most importantly, effective. But for chronic conditions, it needs to be also extremely safe. So then you do human clinical trials. There is no way to avoid that at this point in time.
Sure.
So you might be cutting down, 2 years, but what you must optimize for is the probability of success. Otherwise, whatever you do with AI doesn't really matter.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of people coming to you, are there clients that are coming to you now, and sort of where would they come to you, and how would they get involved with Insilico?
So sure, we have changed our model quite dramatically over the years. So when we just started, we were an algorithm company. Then we evolved to be a software company. So people started buying our software. Now a lot of industry players are utilizing the platform, either Pandomics, Chemistry 42, or Insilico. So currently, I would expect about 10 out of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies to be using our tools in one way or another. However, the grand prize is now in partnering around preclinical assets or even clinical stage assets. So you want the pharma company to partner with you at the lead to preclinical candidate or preclinical candidate stage, so that you do still have the time to work together to create a really optimal clinical trial. Because usually the pharmaceutical company, if they have very good clinical development team, and many of them do, one of the clinical trial clinical director is maybe better, maybe worse, right? So, but generally those are very good experienced people. They do have access to many tools and a lot of data within their specific domain areas and therapeutic areas, where they can actually outperform us on the clinical side, and also outperform us in terms of combining our asset with one of their pipeline elements, because usually it's the combination that the industry needs and the patient need.
Sure.
So usually it's great to partner at earlier stage, but not too early. Partner too early, you will never see it clinical. If you partner at preclinical candidate, you might actually see it reach phase 2 complete and collaborate on the clinical study design. So that's our new main strategy, and that's what we really believe is the sweet spot for our industry in general. Because I think that our industry in general is misunderstood. So many companies in our field that are just starting up, they don't have the capabilities to develop their own assets, and they're just trying to learn. Nowadays, learning is becoming much more difficult because pharmaceutical companies, they do have pretty strong AI teams, and they're not going to teach you like they used to in, early 2014 or 13, right? When they didn't have the armies of deep learning scientists, and we could have, a little bit more experience with them, and also a little bit more collaboration around the data assets that they have. So for many smaller companies, it's pretty much impossible to raise their head up above the water.
Right.
The industry is consolidating. So it's a great time for us, great time to partner. And the pharma companies still, for some strange reason, decide to make, I would say, unwise decisions to partner with too early companies, or try to partner around, even target discovery.
Sure.
And then try to challenge you to go into chemistry. That usually doesn't work, because in the pharmaceutical industry, the chief science officers, chief executive officers change in 4 or 5 year cycles. And usually going from target all the way to, let's say, preclinical candidate with big pharma around novel targets, that's even not enough.
Right.
So they will never see the results of their work progress into the clinic. And usually when a new army comes, they just, it's nuclear.
Right.
So you need to partner in the right time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it sounds to me as well that like you're describing, the real optimal place to get started is that, that window between preclinical and getting started with your clinical studies. Yeah.
I mean, the next best time to partner would be phase 2 complete. So, yeah, because if you start partnering, phase 1 complete, you might have overlooked something in the clinical study design. You are not designing the phase 2 properly. It's much better to do it at preclinical candidate.
Yeah, and actually had projects with larger pharma companies where we've done data cataloging projects, to kind of feed that AI engine as well. So I know it's coming as well. Not something that I've been directly involved in, but yeah, it's definitely the way of the future, is taking all that immense study data that they already have and trying to figure out how to best leverage it for speed, right?
Yeah.
So.
But partnering with companies like ours is, I would say, the optimal way, because very often they believe they have the same or even better expertise. However, when you present, for example, on a very narrow subject at a scientific conference, and people start, standing up and say, "Oh, we have the same capability," and you say, "Well, who around the room has ever progressed a target, let's say, to a preclinical candidate?" And there might not be any hands.
Right.
And sometimes there will be like 2 hands. You ask, okay, well, how many? How many did you progress? How many progressed? Let's say 3. Usually the hands go down, or they keep up. But that is maybe the CSO of a large company,
Sure.
who has seen everything, or a smaller biotech, but they worked in teams. And they contributed a little bit, right? And they basically assign the contribution of the entire company to themselves. But pretty much no AI scientist has done so much.
No. So the theme for Bio 2023 is stand up for science, stand up for innovation. How does Insilico, align with that? How, where do you see?
Right.
It may seem like a ridiculous question to you, but yeah, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts.
So sure. Well, at Insilico, about 2 years ago, we started thinking, okay, technology is moving very, very quickly. It's changing every half a year nowadays in AI.
Right.
So you've seen what happened with generative, right? So it progressed very, very quickly. And we thought, okay, well, technology is going to change, but what is not going to change? We decided to ensure that we have values in the company. So we came together as a company at an offsite, worked over 3 days, and decided to come up with a set of values. And our number one value is patient first. So whatever we do, I want to have drugs helping patients within as short of a period of time as I can deliver. Second major value is relentless innovation. So we innovate every day, every month, every second. Every time we go to sleep, we innovate. And we invent a lot of new tech. So that's why we can publish at a rate of about 1 to 2 research papers a month in good journals. And the third value is transparency and integrity. And that's also one of the reasons why we publish 1 to 2 research papers a month, and also try to explain to people what we do. And even though software business is actually a very small business compared to partnering on assets or partnering on drug discovery, but we still want to have that just so people can see the tool.
Sure.
Because very often AI companies or so-called AI companies claim to be using next generation AI, but if you look at what they use, it will be physics-based modeling and very, very old, crappy tools that either they have developed or maybe better tools that they have in-licensed, or that they have modified, and it's not exactly our level. So we like to keep the software in the open and ensure that it's industrial strength.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, there are 3 questions that I would like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
So I live for only one goal. My objective function is to maximize life for everybody in the planet. So I maximize the number of quality adjusted life years with everything I do. And my inspiration comes from the dream of making people live longer. Doesn't necessarily mean that trying to cure a specific disease. Most of what we do at Insilico is dual purpose. So we're looking for targets that are targeting aging and disease at the same time. So of course the ultimate objective is to figure out how to solve aging, because biology happens in time. We all age, die, and lose everything we have. And we need to utilize AI to understand basic human biology, human biology of aging. And we need to understand animal biology of aging as well. And that will help us identify new treatments that hopefully will help prevent disease and prevent some of those debilitating processes that transpire during aging.
What concerns you? Next question, what concerns you?
What concerns me is human tendency to pay attention to unimportant things and to get involved in arguments that are not necessary at all, so not important. So what is important is how to find a way to live longer, better. What is unimportant is, trying to argue around religious, political, or values, beliefs, right? So a lot of people go to war nowadays for no reason, right? Just because they think that somebody is superior and somebody is inferior. So nobody is superior, nobody is inferior. We all die. And the lifespan is so short that we actually convince ourselves to strategically ignore the fact that we're aging and dying and prioritize something else.
Yeah.
And that's very unfortunate. And I think that this is a huge challenge. So that's why we see a lot of disconnect in the world. That's why we see those geopolitical tensions between US and China and many other countries, even though being friends, collaborating, and integrating, globalizing, and sharing the values, that's much more important than fighting.
Thank you for sharing. The last question, what excites you?
Well, I think my work excites me the most. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing that. So I don't have, family, don't have real estate. I don't care about many issues. I care about my work. And what's exciting in my field right now is, of course, large language models, the multimodal generative AI, so where you can train really large systems on multimodal data to do something that was previously unthinkable, to generate new data, to generate new objects, to follow instructions, to operate at superhuman level with superhuman accuracy. At least what we see in chemistry, we've achieved superhuman accuracy in generative. And I'm also excited about robotics. So we built one of the world's first fully robotics labs for target discovery. End-to-end, it's one huge building, that's one robot, multiple interconnected rooms. We have self-learning autonomous guided vehicles there. I'm very excited about quantum computing. So I think that next 5 years, we're going to see dramatic advances in the field. So before, we just ignored those theoretical proofs of concept. We hear, 16 qubit, 15 qubit, how to stabilize the qubit, how to improve the accuracy. But I think that quantum is getting industrial strength.
Yeah.
We're going to see several hyperscalers dramatically progress in that field, making huge bets. And I see that generative chemistry is one of the first applications of quantum computing where we can live with some level of noise. And all of those technologies converging will help us study aging at a completely new level.
So important. Well, Alex, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. Thanks a lot for sitting down with me and telling me all about Insilico. I greatly appreciate the work that you're doing. And thanks for being on.
Well, please continue the good work.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.